Did you know that Hollywood's golden age, from the 1920s through the 1950s, wasn't just about glamorous premieres and stunning stars? Some were financial, with stars swindled out of royalties or trapped in unfair contracts. Others ran far deeper: heartbreaks, secret affairs, and shocking political betrayals like the blacklist. Friends turned foes, illusions shattered, and the press feasted on every scandal. Yet these stories reveal how fragile stardom truly was. In this documentary, we'll journey through 25 astonishing betrayals that prove the brightest lights cast the darkest shadows. Mary Pickford and the end of United Artists' harmony. Few figures in early Hollywood shone as brightly as Mary Pickford, America's sweetheart, who co-founded United Artists alongside Douglas Fairbanks, Charlie Chaplin, and D.W. Griffith. This pioneering move allowed top creatives to control their own destinies, or so they hoped. Yet by the late 1920s, cracks in the partnership began to show. Each founder had distinct artistic visions and mounting personal issues. Pickford's once idyllic marriage to Douglas Fairbanks faltered, and with it, the studio's stability. Chaplin's controversial personal life drew negative attention, while Griffith's cinematic style fell out of favor. As box office receipts dipped, financial strains and creative disagreements turned the once revolutionary alliance into a hotbed of resentment. Pickford felt betrayed by partners who seemed more engrossed in their individual fame, ignoring the collaborative ideals they'd championed. Rumors flew that Pickford used backroom deals to safeguard her own productions, leaving others underfunded. Chaplin, in turn, accused her of meddling. By the early 1930s, United Artists were in chaos, culminating in bitter splits. Though she remained a legend, Mary Pickford's dream of artistic freedom deteriorated into a cautionary tale. In Hollywood, even the boldest collaborations can fracture when trust erodes behind the scenes. Judy Garland's ordeal with MGM. At just 13, Judy Garland signed a contract with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, destined for superstardom. By 16, she'd immortalized Dorothy Gale in The Wizard of Oz. Audiences saw a bright-eyed teen with an angelic voice, but behind that glowing MGM facade lay a darker reality. Under the watchful eye of studio head Louis B. Mayer, Garland was fed diet pills to control her weight, plus stimulants to keep pace with grueling shooting schedules, then sleeping pills at night. MGM's paternal facade masked exploitation. Judy was essentially trapped in a cycle of addiction. When she became an adult, each attempt to assert independence was crushed by the studio's relentless demands. Executives scolded her about her appearance, threatened suspension, or assigned punishing work hours. Friendships with co-stars often soured when Garland, exhausted, missed calls or fell ill, fueling rumors that she was difficult. In 1950, MGM finally dropped her after a series of breakdowns. For Garland, this felt like the ultimate betrayal. A studio she helped enrich had used her up and tossed her aside. Though she later mounted comebacks in concerts and film, the scars from MGM's betrayal haunted Judy Garland for the rest of her life. Louis B. Mayer's silent sabotage of Hollywood stars. Louis B. Mayer was Hollywood's most influential mogul for good reason. He held absolute power at MGM, turning it into the Tiffany's of film studios. Yet behind his paternal image lurked a master of quiet betrayals. Mayer was known to pit actors against each other, fueling rivalries that benefited the studio's bottom line. Contracts were purposely designed to lock talent into long-term agreements with minimal pay raises, and any defiance led to suspension or blacklisting. Legends like Greta Garbo, Jean Harlow, and Clark Gable all faced moments of tension with Mayer. Some saw their salaries suppressed. Others found their creative input dismissed. Mayer's manipulations extended beyond finances. He often used personal information to control stars, whether by threatening to reveal secrets or by publicly smearing them in the press. Perhaps the greatest betrayal was his facade of fatherly concern while orchestrating backroom deals. Countless actors discovered that while he greeted them warmly in person, he'd simultaneously sabotage better roles or place them in underwhelming productions. In an era with few legal protections for performers, Mayer's brand of power politics defined a Hollywood where loyalty was fleeting and control was everything. Bette Davis versus Jack Warner. After a string of early roles, Bette Davis found her stride at Warner Brothers, winning Oscars for Dangerous and Jezebel. But her fiery temperament clashed repeatedly with studio head Jack L. Warner. Davis felt stifled by formulaic scripts that underused her talent. In 1936, she rebelled, fleeing to England to film a movie without Warner's blessing. Furious, the studio sued her for breach of contract. Davis argued that Warner Brothers was betraying her artistic growth by handing her mediocre roles, citing the inescapable 7-year contract that essentially held her hostage. The British courts sided with the studio, forcing her return. She resumed work under protest, famously remarking that she'd willingly risked career suicide rather than remain a chattel to Warner. Despite losing the legal battle, Davis's bold stand rattled the studio system. Jack Warner, feeling personally offended, retaliated by controlling which scripts Davis received, sometimes punishing her with subpar roles. Although she later enjoyed great successes at Warner Brothers, the damage was done. In Davis's eyes, the studio's betrayal of her ambition and Warner's refusal to release her from stifling terms lingered as a point of contention for years. Joan Crawford's departure from MGM. Joan Crawford, a box office titan of the 1930s, symbolized MGM glamour at its height. Groomed by Louis B. Mayer, she enjoyed a near-constant stream of leading roles. Yet, as the 1940s dawned, her star power waned amid changing audience tastes and the studio's shifting priorities. After a few box office disappointments, Mayer famously declared Crawford box office poison, echoing a damaging phrase from a 1938 press article. Feeling humiliated, Crawford saw fewer quality scripts come her way. Whispers suggested the studio was purposely sidelining her to make room for younger faces. In a final blow, MGM decided to mutually terminate her contract in 1943, an amicable phrasing that masked the sting of being cast aside. Crawford considered it a personal betrayal. She had dedicated nearly 2 decades to the studio, yet found herself overshadowed by starlets she'd once mentored. Determined to prove them wrong, Crawford signed with Warner Brothers, reinventing herself with an Oscar-winning performance in Mildred Pierce, 1945. The triumph validated her belief that MGM's abandonment was not just a business decision, but a profound betrayal of an icon they'd helped create. Olivia De Havilland's lawsuit against Warner Brothers. By the late 1930s, Olivia De Havilland was a rising star, known for her roles in Captain Blood, The Adventures of Robin Hood, and of course, Gone with the Wind. But Warner Brothers locked her into repetitive, sweet ingenue roles, ignoring her range. When she refused to accept certain parts, the studio would suspend her, then extend her contract to cover the suspension period, an onerous policy known as the studio add-on. De Havilland felt cornered, a betrayal of her growth as a serious actress. In 1943, she sued Warner Brothers to challenge the legality of contract extensions beyond the standard 7 years mandated by California labor law. The case dragged on for over a year, with industry insiders warning it could end her career. But in a landmark ruling, the California Supreme Court sided with De Havilland, invalidating the studio's practice of tacking on suspension periods. Nicknamed the De Havilland decision, this victory liberated countless actors from similar contract bondage. Though it cost her time, money, and stress, De Havilland's legal triumph stands as one of Hollywood's most consequential betrayals, turned into a catalyst for change. The Blacklist and Hollywood 10. One of the most notorious betrayals in Hollywood's history wasn't personal. It was political. After World War II, Cold War paranoia spiked, leading to the House Un-American Activities Committee, HUSC, investigating alleged communist subversion in the film industry. By late 1947, the Hollywood 10, a group of writers and directors, refused to testify about their political beliefs, citing free speech rights. They were swiftly cited for contempt of Congress and received prison sentences. In a move many deemed an act of betrayal, studio executives vowed not to employ the Hollywood 10 and demanded loyalty oaths from all staff. Other creatives found themselves under suspicion. Careers ended abruptly as fear swept Tinseltown, leading acquaintances to name names to HUAC in exchange for leniency. Icons like Edward G. Robinson and Sterling Hayden cooperated, leaving blacklisted colleagues feeling deeply betrayed. The willingness of studios, peers, and friends to turn on each other for political expediency was staggering. People who once collaborated seamlessly on set now eyed each other with suspicion. The blacklist destroyed reputations and livelihoods, many never fully recovering. This institutionalized betrayal revealed the darkest side of Hollywood's power structure. In the face of ideological panic, loyalty became scarce, and self-preservation reigned supreme. Howard Hughes and the RKO shakeup. When eccentric billionaire Howard Hughes took control of RKO Pictures in 1948, many hoped he would revive the studio's golden era. Instead, Hughes's unpredictable management style led to a string of abrupt cancellations, leadership firings, and bizarre production choices. Promising films were shelved, and employees faced daily uncertainty. Hughes was known to micromanage every detail, from costumes to casting. Scripts that displeased him disappeared overnight. He effectively sabotaged RKO's finances with endless reshoots and perfectionist demands. Stars like Jane Russell or Robert Mitchum, supposedly favored by him, found themselves suddenly assigned to questionable projects or left idle for months. Morale sank further when rumors spread that Hughes privately spied on employees, recording calls and tracking personal lives. Longtime RKO staff felt betrayed by a man who'd promised them creative freedom but delivered chaos. By the mid-1950s, RKO was hemorrhaging money. Employees lamented that Hughes had taken a once-respected studio and brought it to its knees for personal whims. For many, the real heartbreak was that RKO died less from box office defeats than from the controlling impulses of its mercurial owner. Rita Hayworth's heartbreak over Orson Welles. Rita Hayworth, the shimmering love goddess, captivated audiences in Gilda, 1946, her signature role. Meanwhile, Orson Welles was the directorial genius behind Citizen Kane. Their whirlwind marriage in 1943 looked like a union of brilliance and beauty. Yet beneath the public adoration, tension brewed. Welles's relentless devotion to experimental filmmaking clashed with Hayworth's more traditional stardom under Columbia Pictures. She felt abandoned, complaining that Welles married me for my image, but he was never there. By the time they collaborated on The Lady from Shanghai, rumors swirled that Welles had coerced Hayworth into cutting her trademark hair short and bleaching it platinum to suit his vision, an act she viewed as a betrayal of her carefully crafted screen persona. The film's dismal box office performance intensified resentment. Welles, frustrated by studio interference, drifted further into other projects and left their marriage in ruins. Hayworth later confided the heartbreak left her feeling alone and used. Their brief romance ended in divorce in 1947, an emblem of how creative genius and star glamour can collide, leaving emotional wreckage in their wake. Errol Flynn's marriage scandals. Errol Flynn, the dashing star of Captain Blood and the adventures of Robin Hood, seemed every inch the carefree swashbuckler on screen. Off-screen, he wrestled with legal trouble and betrayals that stained his relationships. Flynn's personal life was notoriously chaotic. Multiple marriages, affairs, and statutory rape accusations led to public trials and endless gossip. His first marriage to actress Lily DeMita disintegrated amid allegations of cheating. Flynn's second wife, Nora Eddington, stood by him through scandalous publicity, only to find out he was secretly involved with another woman. Even the birth of children didn't curb his wanderlust. Some accounts claim Flynn forged documents to hide extramarital escapades, leaving spouses blindsided and humiliated. Flynn's personal betrayals mirrored the roles he played, a charming rogue who left heartbreak in his wake. By the late 1940s, financial issues, heavy drinking, and tabloid headlines torpedoed what should have been a triumphant career. To many of his ex-partners, Flynn's betrayals weren't simply about infidelity. They symbolized a total disregard for the promises and loyalty they'd assumed came with marriage to a Hollywood star. Lana Turner and the Johnny Stompanato fiasco. Lana Turner, the blonde bombshell of MGM hits, like The Postman Always Rings Twice, 1946, endured a sensational betrayal in her relationship with mob-linked Johnny Stompanato. He entered her life as a charming suitor, but soon his violent temper and ties to gangster Mickey Cohen surfaced. When Turner tried to end things, Stompanato responded with threats and abuse. The final act came in 1958. One fateful night, during a heated argument at Turner's Beverly Hills home, Turner's teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, allegedly stabbed Stompanato to protect her mother. The tabloids spun it as Hollywood's darkest melodrama, a star's daughter killing her lover. While Cheryl was deemed justified in a subsequent inquest, rumors circulated that Turner herself wielded the knife, or that the mother-daughter duo conspired to cover up an intentional homicide. The betrayal turned into a public spectacle. Lana Turner's squeaky clean image shattered overnight. Many believed Turner felt betrayed both by Stompanato's dangerous world and by the swirl of accusations afterward. Though she resumed her career, the scandal haunted her, symbolizing how swiftly Tinseltown's glamorous facade could crack under the weight of real-life violence. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz's tumultuous split. Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz emerged as television's first power couple, enchanting millions each week on I Love Lucy. Their comedic chemistry radiated off-screen, at least initially, but success brought relentless pressure. They formed Desilu Productions, juggling hectic filming schedules and financial risks. Rumors of Desi's infidelities and heavy drinking eroded Lucy's trust. Tensions boiled over as tabloids published scandalous photos, hinting Desi's nightlife included female companions. Lucy felt profoundly betrayed, especially after sacrificing so much to preserve their star status. Confrontations in the Desilu offices became routine. Staffers whispered that Lucy once hurled scripts in rage upon discovering new rumors of Desi's indiscretions. In 1960, they divorced, shocking fans who believed the Ricardos were as real as any family. Although Lucy and Desi attempted an amicable split, heartbreak lingered. She once confided, "He loved me, but he loved something else more. Maybe freedom, or maybe just the chase." Ultimately, the couple's downfall was a cautionary tale that relentless showbiz demands, plus personal betrayals, can unravel even the most iconic Hollywood romances. Ingrid Bergman's downfall in Hollywood. Swedish-born Ingrid Bergman epitomized purity on screen in films like Casablanca and Gaslight. Off-screen, however, she ignited one of Hollywood's biggest scandals. In 1949, Bergman starred in Stromboli, directed by Italian neo-realist Roberto Rossellini. Their affair was sensationalized in the press as a moral betrayal of Bergman's husband, Petter Aron Lindstrom, and the wholesome image studios marketed. American audiences and politicians felt deceived. Bergman's personal life clashed violently with her saintly roles. Senator Edwin C. Johnson thundered against her on the Senate floor, calling her a powerful influence for evil. The betrayal narrative extended to her fans, who felt they'd been sold an angelic facade, only to discover a flawed woman behind it. Banished from Hollywood, Bergman relocated to Italy, giving birth to a child with Rossellini. She remained in exile for years, losing custody of her daughter Pia in the process. Though she later made a triumphant return with Anastasia, winning an Oscar, the scandal lingered. Bergman's story, stands as a stark testament to how quickly Tinseltown could brand personal choices as profound betrayals worthy of ostracism. Jean Harlow and Paul Byrne's mysterious tragedy. Jean Harlow, the original platinum blonde, rocketed to stardom at MGM under the watchful eye of producer Paul Byrne, an executive and occasional screenwriter. Their 1932 marriage seemed destined to be a fairy tale union of Hollywood royalty. Merely 2 months later, Byrne was found shot dead in their home. A cryptic note implied he was distraught over sexual inadequacy, fueling myriad rumors. Studio fixers swarmed the scene before police arrived, removing incriminating evidence. Possibly a second woman's involvement. Conspiracy theories posited Byrne's ex-lover shot him, or that Harlow herself played a darker role. In press statements, MGM tried to portray Byrne's death as a tragic suicide, insisting Harlow was an innocent widow. Yet privately, some believed Harlow was forced to keep secrets to protect the studio's image. Many felt Harlow had been betrayed by the very system that was supposed to shield her. The actress hurried back to work. The scandal overshadowed her grief. She died of kidney failure only 5 years later, at 26. The Byrne mystery remains unsolved, a tragic testament to Hollywood's willingness to sacrifice truth for the sake of saving a lucrative star's reputation and its own bottom line. Clark Gable and the secret studio cover-ups. Clark Gable, forever immortalized as Rhett Butler, was MGM's King of Hollywood. Yet behind the suave persona lay rumored cover-ups that some deemed betrayals of trust. Studio gossip claimed that Gable's entanglements were suppressed by MGM fixers, who paid off reporters or potential scandalmongers. One of the most persistent rumors suggested Gable hit and killed a pedestrian while driving under the influence, only to have the incident hushed up with studio money. Though never proven, these allegations added a layer of darkness to his otherwise golden image. Many colleagues who suspected the truth felt the studio system deceived the public. Gable himself seldom commented on personal controversies, focusing on his successful career. But some close to him believed he carried guilt over such incidents, seeing the studio's protective machine as a double-edged sword. It saved his career, but also robbed him of openly facing or atoning for mistakes. Whether myth or reality, these stories remind us that Tinseltown's royalty sometimes had ghosts lurking in the shadows, concealed by powerful studio loyalties. Orson Welles versus RKO. Orson Welles, celebrated for Citizen Kane at just 25, seemed unstoppable. Then he clashed with RKO over budget overruns and the radical style of his next projects, including The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942. While Welles was away on another assignment, RKO infamously re-edited Ambersons without his consent, cutting nearly an hour and tacking on a more upbeat ending. Welles viewed this as the studio's ultimate betrayal of his creative vision. Adding salt to the wound, RKO executives publicly blamed Welles's eccentricities for the fiasco. The meltdown destroyed any trust between the wunderkind director and the studio system. The film bombed, tarnishing Welles's track record. RKO soon fired him, shelving or altering further ideas he pitched. Welles never forgave this betrayal. For decades, he bemoaned that the missing Ambersons footage was the greatest tragedy in his career. Historians agree that had the film remained intact, it might have rivaled Citizen Kane as a masterwork. Instead, it stands as one of Hollywood's saddest examples of creative sabotage, a lasting testament to how quickly a studio could turn on a once-lauded genius. Tyrone Power and the Broken Studio Promises. Tyrone Power was 20th Century Fox's swashbuckling heartthrob in hits like The Mark of Zorro and Blood and Sand. Behind the dashing image, however, Power felt trapped. Fox repeatedly promised him complex, dramatic roles, only to cast him in similar romantic adventure films. Eager to evolve as an actor, Power requested more varied material, yet faced the usual studio pressures: do as told or face suspension. World War II provided a brief escape. Power enlisted in the Marines, serving as a transport pilot. When he returned, he expected the studio to reward his service and seniority. Instead, Fox locked him into the same swashbuckling type. Worse, they allegedly pressured him to sign long-term contracts that underpaid him compared to newer stars. Friends say Power felt betrayed by executives who saw him as a revenue generator rather than a serious actor. Exhausted by typecasting, he eventually sought roles outside Fox, including Nightmare Alley, 1947, a film noir that showcased his range. But the studio's reluctance to fully back such efforts limited its success. Power's frustration underscores how big studios often betrayed their own marquee talents by refusing to let them grow. The Hollywood divorce machine, Ava Gardner and Frank Sinatra. The torrid romance of Ava Gardner and Frank Sinatra was front-page news in the early 1950s. Their marriage, after Sinatra left first wife Nancy, became an emblem of passion and heartbreak. Yet behind the glamour lay repeated betrayals. Sinatra's career took a nosedive when public outrage labeled him a cad, while Gardner's star soared at MGM. Emotional volatility defined their relationship. Arguments, reconciliations, and rumored infidelities on both sides. Sinatra was jealous of Gardner's co-stars. She found his mood swings and rumored affairs unbearable. Studios exploited their marital drama for publicity, but did little to address the couple's real crises. Insiders whispered that Sinatra once discovered Gardner had a brief fling with a European actor while shooting abroad, leading to a furious confrontation. By 1957, the pair divorced, each feeling betrayed by the other, and by an industry that reveled in their mess for headlines. Ironically, Sinatra's film career revived with From Here to Eternity, netting him an Oscar. Gardner left the U.S. in search of peace. Their tumultuous union stands as a testament to how Hollywood's relentless spotlight can make heartbreak painfully public and extremely profitable for everyone but the couple involved. The exploitation of child stars, Shirley Temple, and others. During Hollywood's golden age, studios discovered the box office goldmine of child stars like Shirley Temple, Judy Garland, who started young, and Mickey Rooney. The betrayal here was less personal, more systemic. Child actors often worked to exhaustion, receiving questionable education and minimal royalties. As Temple danced and sang her way through Depression-era hits, 20th Century Fox capitalized on her adorable image to rake in profits. Yet behind the scenes, Temple's mother, like so many stage mothers, had to negotiate with studio executives fixated on controlling every aspect of Shirley's life. Temple once recounted harrowing auditions where grown men made insensitive remarks or placed undue pressure on her performance. Many child stars recalled feeling like commodities, robbed of normal childhood experiences. The real betrayal arose when these kids aged out of their cuteness. Studios frequently dumped them, leaving emotional and financial repercussions. Shirley Temple navigated the transition by eventually retiring at 22. Others, however, spiraled into depression or addiction. It's a reminder that the Golden Age's voracious appetite for new talent often betrayed the youngest among them, discarding child stars once their novelty faded. Joan Fontaine and Olivia De Havilland's sister feud. Sibling rivalries can be intense, but few match the lifelong feud between sisters Joan Fontaine and Olivia De Havilland, both acclaimed actresses. From childhood, they competed for parental affection. The tension escalated when both pursued Hollywood careers. In 1941, Olivia soared in Gone with the Wind, while Joan nabbed an Oscar for Suspicion. Some accounts say Olivia was furious that her younger sister won an Academy Award first. The mutual betrayal deepened over alleged snubs at award ceremonies and perceived slights in interviews. When their mother died, conflicts over funeral arrangements and inheritance became public. Decades-long estrangement followed, each sister refusing to reconcile. Hollywood fans were shocked that two lauded stars would nurse grudges for so long. Many believed the root cause was envy. Joan felt overshadowed by Olivia's success in major studio pictures, while Olivia resented Joan's early accolades. They never fully mended fences, even into old age. Their story stands as a stark example of how personal rivalry, especially among family, can overshadow accomplishments. The sisters' feud remains one of Tinseltown's most heartbreaking, private betrayals made painfully public. Greta Garbo and the MGM double standard. Greta Garbo became an international icon, with her aloof mystique and luminous performances. Signed to MGM in the late 1920s, she played everything from tragic heroines to sophisticated vamps. Yet by the late 1930s, as Garbo navigated personal independence, the studio's stance on her privacy grew tense. Executives wanted to exploit her Garbo mystique, while she craved genuine solitude. When she expressed desire for fewer roles or more creative input, MGM responded with a double standard. Male stars like Clark Gable got leeway to pick projects, but Garbo was expected to remain reliable. After her film Two-Faced Woman, 1941, flopped, the studio offered only subpar scripts, pressuring her to do publicity she despised. Feeling betrayed by promises of artistic freedom, Garbo abruptly retired at age 35. No farewell, no final bow. Fans never got closure. A star who once defined cinematic magic simply vanished, in part because she felt MGM no longer respected her artistry or her autonomy. To Garbo loyalists, the studio's betrayal was letting a singular talent slip away, sacrificed to business decisions and sexist assumptions about a woman's place in Hollywood. The Gone with the Wind pay dispute, Vivien Leigh and others. Gone with the Wind, 1939, might be the most famous film of the Golden Age, but behind its sweeping romance lay financial betrayals. Lead actress Vivien Leigh, playing Scarlett O'Hara, received a respectable salary but nowhere near the pay of Clark Gable, who earned a much heftier sum plus perks. While Gable was already a superstar, Leigh's monumental workload, she appeared in nearly every scene, made the disparity galling. Further friction arose among supporting actors like Olivia De Havilland, Melanie Hamilton, and Leslie Howard, Ashley Wilkes, who felt overshadowed by the marketing focus on Gable. Producer David O. Selznick micromanaged every detail, requiring endless retakes. Some cast members quietly griped about overtime pay withheld or bonuses promised then rescinded. Rumors spread that Leigh was furious about how the studio minimized her requests for rest and better compensation, leaving her exhausted. Yet Selznick valued Gable's star power above all, funneling most resources to keep him happy. For those who endured the epic shoot, the final product overshadowed their personal frustrations. But the unequal treatment remains one of Hollywood's iconic examples of how even record-breaking hits can be born from bruised egos and perceived betrayals. John Gilbert and Louis B. Mayer's falling out. Silent-era heartthrob. John Gilbert soared at MGM, revered for his passionate roles opposite Greta Garbo. But the transition to sound proved rocky. According to legend, studio chief Louis B. Mayer disliked Gilbert personally, making it his mission to sabotage Gilbert's talkie career. Rumors had it that Mayer deliberately assigned incompetent sound technicians to Gilbert's first talkies, distorting his famously high-pitched voice. One infamous confrontation saw Gilbert and Mayer trading heated insults. Mayer allegedly delivered a low blow, mocking Gilbert's romantic failures. Gilbert retaliated physically. From that point on, the executive seemed bent on burying the star. Despite Gilbert's best efforts, a string of poorly produced sound films flopped, which further tarnished his image. Some historians debate whether Mayer truly meddled, or if Gilbert's voice just didn't suit talkies. Regardless, Gilbert felt deeply betrayed. A top MGM star undone by the very system that once glorified him. He spiraled into depression and alcoholism, dying in 1936 at age 38. His downfall endures as a cautionary tale of how swiftly Hollywood can turn on its own when personal vendettas trump talent. Paulette Goddard's contentious split from Chaplin. Actress Paulette Goddard entered Charlie Chaplin's life in the early 1930s. Though details remain murky about whether they legally married, they publicly presented themselves as husband and wife. Goddard starred in Chaplin's Modern Times, 1936, and The Great Dictator, 1940, showcasing comedic charm. But behind the camera, tensions flared. Chaplin's controlling nature, both professionally and personally, left Goddard feeling overshadowed. Industry gossip claimed Chaplin promised to champion Goddard's career, but rarely followed through. When the two parted ways by 1942, Goddard discovered that many of her film deals were entangled in Chaplin's finances, complicating her future. She also felt he withheld proper credit for her creative contributions to Modern Times. Chaplin, for his part, believed she used his fame to secure roles. Their separation was acrimonious, culminating in lawsuits over assets and whether they'd ever been truly wed. Hollywood watchers saw this as yet another instance of Chaplin's rumored difficulty in relationships. In the end, Goddard proved she could flourish on her own, earning an Oscar nomination for So Proudly We Hail, 1943. Yet her biggest heartbreak was the sense that Chaplin's vow to nurture her talent had been a hollow pledge. The Cold Shoulder, Marlene Dietrich's exile from Paramount. Marlene Dietrich, the sultry German export who mesmerized viewers in Morocco and Shanghai Express, was once Paramount's crown jewel. But as World War II ended, Paramount's interest in her waned. Rumors swirled that executives doubted American audiences would forgive her German heritage, despite her outspoken anti-Nazi stance. They cut her roles, renegotiated her contract on less favorable terms, and refused to greenlight projects she championed. Dietrich felt blindsided. She had performed tirelessly on USO tours, risking her life to entertain Allied troops and record propaganda broadcasts against the Third Reich. Yet the studio that profited from her fame now seemed to see her as a liability. She eventually parted ways with Paramount, forging a new path with stage shows and occasional film appearances elsewhere. Some labeled it a corporate betrayal, driven by shifting post-war sentiments and profit calculations. Dietrich carried on, becoming a cultural icon well into the 1950s and beyond. But the rift underscored Hollywood's harsh reality. Once your persona no longer aligns with a studio's marketing needs, you're cast aside, no matter how loyal or how valuable you've been. From Mary Pickford's shattered dream of United Artists' unity to Marlene Dietrich's unceremonious exit from Paramount, these 25 betrayals paint a vivid portrait of an industry built on fragile alliances, immense egos, and the omnipresent hunger for profit. Studios promised fame and fortune, but often demanded unyielding loyalty, punishing those who dared to seek control over their own destinies. Actors, too, forged or broke bonds for personal gain. No star was immune to the pull of self-preservation or the sting of heartbreak. Betrayal wasn't always about malice. Sometimes it stemmed from mismatched expectations, the crush of contractual obligations, or the overwhelming pressure to remain bankable in an ever-changing market. Still, the results could be devastating. Careers in ruin, friendships turned to enmity, families torn apart. In these stories, we see how the illusions on screen contrasted sharply with the real drama behind the scenes. A studio chief who smiled in public might be the same figure who manipulated or abandoned a star once box office receipts dipped. A beloved icon might betray a partner for a fleeting fling, only to find the tabloids devouring their private turmoil. And yet, Hollywood persisted, reinventing its film after film, decade after decade. Out of these betrayals came new forms of artistic freedom, legal victories for performers, and surprising comebacks. As audiences, we benefit from the captivating magic of old Hollywood, even as we acknowledge the turbulence beneath its glossy facade. Today, these stories serve as a reminder. Behind every glamorous close-up or triumphant award speech, there might be a tale of ambition, compromise, and sometimes treachery. The Golden Age may have ended, but its betrayals linger, etched into Hollywood lore.